Welcome into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in beautiful Port Townsend, Washington. We have a responsive reading. Welcome all who seek renewal in a weary world.
Welcome all who come with love and energy to share.
Welcome to those who worry for the future.
Welcome each one who is grateful for today.
Know that in this place you are safe.
Your community, we share our strength with one another, and we keep the flame of love burning bright.
And you're also not alone. Know that in this place responsibility is shared.
Here, tradition holds us, ancestors shine a light from the past.
Here, the young lift their bright faces and beckon us onward. Take my hand and we can go together. My name's Mary Tucker, and I'm a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the Skaalum and Chimacum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. If you're visiting today, I offer a special welcome to you and invite you to join us for refreshments and a conversation in the fellowship hall after the service. We have a newcomers table near the patio doors where our greeters are ready to answer any questions you might have. Welcome to you all this morning. We're glad you're here. Have a few announcements. Join the Threshold Choir and Reverend Linda tomorrow night at 6:30 for a sound bath and community connection. See Linda or Helen, our pianist, for more information. Please stop by the table in the foyer with the balloons after the service. There you will find information about the upcoming forum on searching for the future scheduled for Saturday, February 8th, led by an experienced UU facilitator. We will explore crucial questions that will help us develop a mission and vision statement for QUUF. We hope you will sign up for a morning or afternoon session on Sign Up Genius. Please see the weekly update for more information and a link to sign up. We value your voice in this important process, and there will be a table outside in the foyer after the service. There was a planned book signing in the fellowship hall after the service with Sandra Smith Poling. Unfortunately, she is not feeling well, so the book signing won't be happening this morning after all. Our best wishes and thoughts for Sandra in feeling better. And now a message from the Dining for Dollars team. Would you like to host a meal or event that aren't sure exactly what to do? The team, Mary Tyberski, Betty O'Brien, Susan Stone, Deb Carroll, Kathy Camacho-Carr, with Christina Tweed's assistance, will help you with ideas, where to host your event, and who might like to assist you. Remember, we are building our community by being with friends both old and new. Your offerings can be big or small, indoors or at one of our parks, your home or yard, or here at QUUF, anytime. Please have your event form in by January 27th. Fill out a paper form or fill one out online. Need help? Ask the team. And now let us settle our minds and calm our hearts.
Our opening words come from Martin Luther King Jr., from his letter from the Birmingham jail. I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable net of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with a narrow provincial outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider within its bounds. Today we pause to remember and reflect, to open our hearts and minds to the realities of interconnectedness that we so often forget, and to respond to the invitation to grow in both awareness and action. Will you join me in our chalice lighting words? We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because they are our siblings, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, to live lives full of goodness and love because that is how we will become the best people we can be. Let us join in singing our opening hymn, number 169 in the Gray Hymnal, if you'd like to follow along. We shall overcome. Please rise as you wish.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we'll walk hand
For how many of you is that a walk down memory lane? I'd like to invite the children to come forward. It's time for all ages, which means anyone can come forward, because all of us are an age, I mean, after all. Oh my goodness, those are fabulous sunglasses. Oh. All right. Okay, still coming. My goodness. So the song that we just sang, We Shall Overcome, I asked the adults if it was a trip down memory lane, because many of us sang those many, many years ago during the Civil Rights Movement. And our book today is about the Civil Rights Movement and about that song and how it came about. It's a little long, so I hope you'll be patient. And be sure to take a look at the pictures. So, here we go. Back in slavery times, when enslaved people worked long days with no pay and no say, no freedom, no fairness, no choice, no chance, the people sang. They suffered, yet they sang to soothe the hurt, to fight the cruelty, to declare that, yes, they were human beings. It took a war, the Civil War, to end slavery, but even after, white people treated black people as less than fully human, excluding them, ignoring them, blaming them, even attacking them, all because of the color of their skin. Black people were no longer slaves, it was true, but they were not truly free. Still, they believed things would get better, and still they sang. It wasn't easy to believe. It wasn't easy when white people shut African Americans from good jobs and good pay, schools and libraries and neighborhoods and restaurants and hotels and bathrooms and train cars and bus seats and playgrounds and parks. Whew, what a list. But black Americans and some white Americans did believe they could overcome the unfairness, hate, and violence. They started to protest. They brought a church song, I Will Overcome, to the streets. But since they were marching and working together, they sang, We will overcome. Together, we will overcome. From the streets, the song reached the ears of city people, country people, followers, and leaders. It reached Martin Luther King Jr., the most important leader working for justice for African Americans. He took the song with him in his heart everywhere he traveled. The words changed a little, but the spirit stayed the same. There were many forms of race hatred and many ways to fight it. Some students fought by sitting down in restaurants and asking to be served food. They didn't ask for free food. They didn't ask for special service. They just wanted to buy a meal like any white person could. The students sat and sat, waiting for hamburgers, donuts, and sodas that never came. The students sat and waited until they were arrested. And as they were taken to jail, they sang, We are not afraid. It helped them. More and more people decided to stand up for the rights of African Americans. One small group, the Freedom Singers, traveled 50,000 miles in 9 months to living rooms, concert halls, elementary schools, jails, high schools, and rallies, bringing We Shall Overcome to people in 40 states, inspiring them to believe that change was coming. The biggest gathering of people united in support of fairness for African Americans took place in the national capital, in the nation's capital. Marching toward the Lincoln Memorial, hundreds of thousands of people, black and white and young and old, joined hands, joined voices, and sang. Is there anyone here who was at that march? I'm just curious. Bless you all. Bless you all. Bless you too. Slowly, slowly, things were changing. Laws were passed. But race hatred stayed strong, even stronger than the laws. So President Lyndon Johnson gave a speech. His ancestors once held slaves in Texas and Georgia, but President Johnson looked out at millions of people watching him on television, spoke of equal rights, human rights, and voting rights for African Americans, and he recited the words to the song. How could such a song stay in one country? It could not. We Shall Overcome sailed across oceans to other countries where people faced injustice. It traveled to South Africa, where Black Africans embraced it as their own freedom song in their own long struggle against an all-white government that treated them as outcasts in their own land. The song traveled to India, East Germany, South Korea, Czechoslovakia, Northern Ireland, Bangladesh, China, the Middle East, South America, wherever people worked for a better life. Even as it spread around the globe, the song never really left its American home. It took a very long time, but race hatred did grow weaker, freedom grew stronger. President Lyndon Johnson was followed by another president and another and another and another and another, and then the people of the United States, Black and white, young and old, elected an African American man to be president. On that day, people sang the song that so many voices had sung before in pain, in protest. And on that day, they sang it in happiness. Today, people still struggle against hatred, and for freedom, against poverty and for fairness, against despair and for hope. We still sing. We sing to declare that, yes, we are all human beings, deserving of respect, sharing the planet, the same future together. And that's our story. That was the song. That's a song that that we just sang. And now we're going to rise along the aisle and make an arch up. Whoa! We are eager today. Please join in singing. Go now
in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see so many children here. I remember not that long ago, sometimes there were only a couple of them. It's wonderful, I think. So now it's time to pause for a time of generosity and to receive an offering to support the life and ministry of QUUF. The ushers will now come among you to receive the offering, and additional ways for giving will be projected. Please join me in our offering words. This fellowship is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
This is the time that we set aside to share our joys and sorrows. We recognize that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And so we place this first stone in gratitude for the first steps towards resolution of the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. May the journey toward peace continue. Within the congregation, Kate Simpson shares that her mom, Phyllis Simpson, died at the age of 97 on Tuesday, January 13th. Kate also shares that she is distressed that her own health will not allow her to travel to Missouri for the funeral service. May we hold her in our hearts. Rena Garcia asks for a stone of joy to symbolize the source of strength and love her mother has been for her and her daughter. And we light a candle to send warmth and healing thoughts and prayers to her mother and the universe as she navigates unanticipated health issues with both her heart and lungs. And we place a final stone, holding in our hearts these joys and sorrows, and also thinking of those joys and sorrows which we hold silently, but are of no less importance. Thank you. Will you join me in a few moments of quiet and reflection? I'll begin with some words of prayer by my colleague, Aisha Hauser. Some days it feels like it's just too much. Some days I want to hide and shut it all out. Some days I want to channel the ancestors who fought for liberation and for the right to exist. Every day I want to know when to speak up and disrupt injustice, even in the seemingly insignificant moments. But each moment is significant. Each day an opportunity arises when we can bear witness and choose to disrupt injustice. Spirit of life, give us the courage and wisdom to become holy disruptors and truth tellers when called upon. Grant us the humility to know that this is a practice, and when we make mistakes, we will try again with love and patience. We are called to the caring and growing of souls, and we are all in this together. As a people of faith who affirm the interdependent web of which we are all a part, we are called to become holy disruptors, because we are all in this together. Let us pause in stillness together. Our first reading today comes from the writings of Martin Luther King Jr., his essay, Loving Your Enemies. He says, of course, love is not practical. Life is a matter of getting even, of hitting back, of dog eat dog. Am I saying that Jesus commands us to love those who hurt and oppress us? Do I sound like most preachers, idealistic and impractical? Maybe in some distant utopia, you say, that idea will work, but not in the cold, hard world in which we live. My friends, we have followed the so-called practical way for far too long now, and it has led us inexorably into deeper confusion and chaos. Time is cluttered with the communities which surrendered to hatred and violence. For the salvation of our nation and the salvation of humanity, we must follow another way. That does not mean we abandon our righteous efforts. With every ounce of energy, we must continue to rid this nation of the incubus of segregation. But we shall not, in the process, relinquish our privilege and our obligation to love. While abhorring segregation, we shall love the segregationist. This is the only way to build the beloved community.
I didn't know. Okay, the second reading is Wild Peace by Yehuda Amichai, I think, translated by Chana Block. Not the peace of a ceasefire, not even the vision of the wolf and the lamb, but rather, as in the heart, when the excitement is over and you can talk only about a great weariness. I know that I know how to kill. That makes me an adult. And my son plays with a toy gun that knows how to open and close its eyes and say, Mama. A peace without the big noise of beating swords into plowshares, without words, without the thud of a heavy rubber stamp. Let it be light, floating like lazy white foam. A little rest for the wounds. Who speaks of healing? And the howl of the orphans is passed from one generation to the next, as in a relay race. The baton never falls. Let it come like wildflowers, suddenly, because the field must have it. Wild peace.
You got that right. That was gorgeous. Thank you. My gosh. I'm not used to getting kind of overwhelmed in the middle of service. Goodness sakes. All right. It will be the 57th year since King was assassinated in Memphis. He was on a side trip from his last major protest movement. He had been accompanying the wagon train that was moving from the South to Washington, D.C., where he and all of his companions intended to stay until the Congress passed legislation that would address the needs of the poor all around the country. Once the mule train reached Washington, D.C., without King and the community in deep grief, they would build a tent city called Resurrection City next to the Lincoln Memorial and demonstrate and lobby for a $12 million economic Bill of Rights in 1968. Do you realize how much $12 million in 1968 was? It was an amazingly audacious demand. The bill included guaranteed employment for those who were able to work, income for those unable to work, and an end to discrimination in housing. For this march, King and the Southern Christian Leadership Council had built a diverse coalition: white and black citizens from the South, Hispanic Americans, and Native Americans. There were people from the ghettos of Los Angeles there and from farms in the Carolinas. From May 14th to June 24th, the residents of Resurrection City, as the compound was called, the plywood buildings and tents. It was an amazing place. I think I've mentioned that my mother was a participant in that, and she took us there one day. So I actually stood in Resurrection City as a young child, very shyly watching a group of girls do double Dutch jump rope, which I had never seen before. They were amazing. Anyhow, as I was saying, from May 14th to June 24th, the residents of Resurrection City were went to the Hill and advocated for that Bill of Rights. A march and a rally held at the Lincoln Memorial on June 19th. They hoped to celebrate their victory. Featured Coretta Scott King, Mahalia Jackson, Aretha Franklin, Jesse Jackson, and collections of activists who were part of that movement. And as we all know, without King, the civil rights movement faltered. All those people who had come from across the country eventually returned home without having accomplished any of the agenda that they had hoped to pass. Can you imagine what the world would be like if they had gotten even a small part of that passed? What might the world be like if they got it all passed? Amazing. The vision that King cast was wider than being able to sit at lunch counters, bigger than riding on buses, and never just about black people. It was all about healing the soul of the United States. The spark that launched all of it, Rosa Parks' act of defiance on a bus, a fully planned act of defiance, I want you to be sure to know. It may have been, that act of defiance might have been about where she could sit, but it quickly became larger. The agenda wasn't just riding on buses, but also who could drive the bus. Fun fact. King was new to Dexter Avenue Church, which was only blocks away from the state capitol in Montgomery, and that was why he was selected to be the spokesperson for the action that followed Parks' arrest. I didn't know that fact till very recently. What amazes me most about that fact is that he was 26 at the time. 26. I can hardly imagine stepping into the national spotlight at that age, and yet there he was, speaking truth. The letter to from the Birmingham jail was written when he was just 36 years old, and he was not yet 40 when he died. At the heart of what he preached was liberating love. The love of God, the love that Jesus preached about. He believed in a personal God, a God who loved everyone, who knew all of our hearts, who heard prayers and answered them. His dissertation for Boston University, this is for his PhD, was completed in that first year that he served in Montgomery. And in it, he argued that God wasn't just some amorphous power, but had a personality and was capable of relationship, deep personal relationship with all of life. This is what grounded him in the world, this God who cared about humanity and the earth, all of it, no exceptions. I suspect, honestly, that King was a closet Universalist. One has to claim who one can. And that he couldn't imagine a God who would condemn humanity to suffering eternal misery. He couldn't imagine a God who didn't want freedom for creation and its inhabitants. An essay on the World Impact website describes his notes, an essay on the World Impact website notes about him. He waged a war using love and the hope of defeating weapons of violence used to deal with racial conflict and resistance to racial oppression. To understand this is to understand the true ends of the civil rights movement at its best. The missional dynamic of this part of the civil rights movement was focused on the liberation of the oppressed, the conversion of the oppressor. This is very important, the conversion of the oppressor and the empowerment of the poor. This all seems gospel-like. The problem is some parts of evangelicalism have instead tried to make this gospel light by describing it only as an example of the social gospel. But to limit this part of the movement in this way, or even use the term social gospel to rip justice work away from the declaration and demonstration of the kingdom of God, is to deeply misunderstand the gospel itself. Liberating love. The kind of love that King preached and sought to embody and invited his listeners to join was about transformation. It was about the liberation of us all, the oppressors and the oppressed, the clueless and the cruel, every category, everyone. The work wouldn't be accomplished with punishment or anger, but only with the power of love. My colleague, Bob Carnan of blessed memory, articulated what love was well. And he's talking about Unitarian Universalists, but I would expand that out beyond us. He said, our church and fellowship buildings and the moments that we share within and outside them point to a sometimes wild and raging visionary courage in the face of all that would demean and destroy and pervert and estrange what is in our hearts. There is no more critical task for our lives than the courage to love and to be there honestly and fully for one another. Deep and good friendship and all the trust and serenity that comes with it is transformative. Deep friendship makes a healthy life possible, even likely. It makes for peace and strength in facing the hardest issues. doing what we can for what is right, just, and fair here on earth where we live is the most powerful social justice force on earth. The quality of love and goodness that we expose from our sometimes reluctant hearts will change the world. Our task is not to make more Unitarian Universalists or to make bigger congregations. It is, or to raise gobs of money. Although Robin's not here, our stewardship person, we wouldn't mind it. But that's not our task. Our task is to heal and inspire, to open and remake, and thus change what is sorry into what is a joy. It is why we gather in the spirit of love and justice. It is why I give my life in service to what can only be described as invisible and intangible, but which is also the most powerful force of all. Our all too human, sometimes faltering, sometimes complete, sometimes painful and sad, sometimes serene and laughing love that speaks, if anything at all does, with the voice of God. My friends, this is our legacy, and this is our challenge, to be bearers of love into the world, to speak truth to power, to be creators of greater connection, greater equality, greater love and compassion for all. It is by embodying and living out this liberating love that we might create what Yehuda Amichai calls for, a peace without the big noise of beating swords into plowshares, without words, without the thud of the heavy rubber stamp. Let it be light, floating, like lazy white foam, a little rest for the wounds. Who speaks of healings? And the orphans, and the howl of the orphans is passed from one generation to the next, as in a relay race, the baton never falls. But let it come, friends. Let it come to us all like wildflowers suddenly, because the field, because we must have it. May it be in our hands to expand the realm of love here and now and everywhere we can. So may it be. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 1008 in the teal hymnal, if you want to follow along there, when our heart is in a holy place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy
Closing words from Martin Luther King Jr. Now let us begin. Now let us rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter but beautiful struggle for a new world. The choice is ours, and though we may prefer it otherwise, we must choose in this crucial moment of human history. May we make it so, friends. Amen, and blessed be. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of community, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.